Hello and welcome to the Anomaly Project, The Agenda, the show where we look ahead to our upcoming episode. I'm Marcus Lowth, and joining me as does every week is Steve Mera. Now, Steve, this week we're speaking to Nigel Watson, another chap who's been in this game for a long time, knows a lot of stuff. Should be a good
Yep,
show.
absolutely. I mean, anybody who's really into UFOs in the UK will recognize Nigel for the work that he's done. He's done some good books over the years,
Hmm.
kind of a UFO guide. It was quite good. It was actually like a Haynes manual for ufology. And I thought
Hmm.
that's great. I love the spin on that. That was really good. He did well there. And of course, he's got these. He's got a new book out, of course,
Yeah.
about alien contact sort of experiences, which range from multiple different things. But he's always been in the foreground of ufology in the UK for many years. He's been at this for a long time. But what I like is the fact that we have somebody in from the UK. He's talking about UK ufology. I
Yeah.
mean, as Nigel has often said, this is a global phenomenon. It's not just happening in the US or
Hmm.
Russia or China. It's happening in the UK. Now, when you talk to anybody in the US, you say, "Well, what do you know about the UK?" They're going to naturally just say, "Oh, Rendlesham." That's
Yeah.
the only thing that can pop up, from 1980. But there's hundreds, if not thousands, of incidents and cases across the UK over many years. Some of them are very, very interesting. Near air misses, military pilots such have experienced phenomena, people who have had missing time, alien abduction encounters, interesting cases in Wales, interesting cases in Scotland. And I like to say, well, I'm glad those are back on the table because, be honest, you can get a bit bogged down sometimes in
Mhm.
ufology, and it's very simple. But at the same time, it is a global phenomena. But sometimes things are a little bit different in the UK in regarding how they're investigated, which is quite
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I think we have to ask him about that as well. And if I understand it correctly, he looks a lot more, it's not a lot more than, but a lot historical UFOs more than other researchers might do, particularly like the airship sightings. There's waves of those in like
Well, most
America,
people are
UK,
doing
New
it now.
Zealand. Just
Yeah.
speak to him about that, really, because
People
that'll
don't
be
talk about
interesting.
that stuff anymore, but sometimes you've got to go back and revisit old cases to
Yeah,
find new information with the power of the internet. Because I started before the internet, you may have done, and then
it's just
definitely
coming in. Right?
Nigel definitely
Yeah.
did. There was no way to research, but now we've got that, at our fingertips. We can go back and look at old cases and go,
Oh, yeah.
okay,
Mm.
how many were they really strange? And can we discount some because they were misidentifications? So, and this is what he does, and not just into aerial phenomena like
Mm.
airships of the 1890s. And significantly, if you punch it into Google, you'll probably find the Cardiff incidents,
Yeah.
around about that time, as well as Sacramento. But of course, you'll also get into Foo Fighters, and so these are the historical things, which really
Mm.
just as much information is out there if you do the research, and you can go back and look at it. And I think he does sort of specify that these types of research into those old historical cases, which are equally just as interesting.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly the airship ones, but like you say, the Foo Fighters ones, because they were so close in proximity in time wise to the start of the modern UFO era with Roswell and everything, and Kenneth Arnold and everything that came after that. So yeah, we'll have to ask him if he feels there is a connection to those things, if they're part of the UFO phenomenon, if there's something completely different. Because
Yeah.
there as much as there are reports of discs and cigar-shaped objects, as we've spoken about before, there's plenty of spherical objects, glowing orbs of
Oh
light.
yeah.
So we should probably
There's,
get his opinion
there's,
on such things.
there's some really good stuff from the UK researchers, which have done a great job over the years. I mean, of course, we have the whole Warminster thing,
Oh yeah,
and when I say thing, that's what they called it,
yeah, they
the
did.
thing,
Mm.
because it caused a bit of a stir. But there were some real interesting incidents that took place down there. Arthur Shuttlewood was very well known researcher and
Hmm.
author.
Hmm.
He investigated these things and other pockets of places around the UK. I mean, throughout Scotland, you got Bonnybridge,
Yeah, yeah.
where
Falkirk
there's been
Triangle.
many sightings. More current times, I would say around places like Bempton,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
the east coast of England.
Oh yeah, there's loads
Paul
on
Sinclair's doing
sightings
a
there.
great research there, and
I
it
mean,
is high strangeness.
the UFO sightings there are absolutely phenomenal. I mean, especially on the coast. I mean, this made the
Coastline,
papers as well, and there was witnessed by a couple who owned a bed and breakfast, and they saw. They reported seeing only UFOs, but like military action on the beach, not
yeah,
not fighting or anything, but
something was going
troops
on.
moving around, yeah. And the army was asked to comment on this, and they said, yeah, there was something going on, but that's all they would say.
That's all
But
they'll say.
yeah, and there's loads of sightings of, and there has been for years and decades as well.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's been illuminated this area through the research of Paul
yeah,
Sinclair.
into the
But
Pennine Moors area, another one.
well, exactly. And even before I knew of Paul Sinclair's work in Bempton, just down the road, you got Filey,
Yeah. Mm.
and other places like that. And I think to myself, well, do you know what? Things have been happening there as well
Oh yeah, I mean,
for
a lot of
years.
UFO researchers have contemplated whether it's connected to the North Sea, and these underwater bases, which I know is a bit preposterous to some, but we've got a similar thing off the Devonshire and Cornwall coast, where there's loads of sightings down there too. So there could be something to this, underwater bases thing.
Could be, it could be something to it, but it puts UK certainly on the map in regarding we have some profound
Hmm.
UFO incidents that have taken place, and not just alien abductions. UK is probably the most well known in the world for the aspects of crop circles,
Oh,
for
for
the
sure.
aspect of
Yeah,
paranormal hauntology.
yeah, yeah.
It is really a footprint of phenomena, the UK, probably more so than many other countries around the world.
Yeah, I mean it's got a long, rich history, like you say, but there's more happens here than people might think if you're not from the UK, even if you're from the UK, if you've not got your eyes open to this sort of stuff. I think it's interesting though, like officially, we'll have to ask his thoughts on this. Officially, the UK doesn't investigate or take reports of UFOs, the government and the authorities. However, they said that way back in the 50s. And it came to like afterwards that they had a whole department, room
Yeah.
801, which was just hidden in a hotel, essentially, or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yeah.
nondescript room, and they'd have a big map on the wall and they'd drawing pins with all these. They were investigating them then, and they
Yeah.
lied about it, and then they
Yeah.
only admitted it when they got caught or when it was uncovered. So
Yeah.
for them to say we're not investigating it now, I don't know about that.
No,
There'll be
look.
something going on.
Yeah, I think all they did is they shut the door to the
Yeah.
public so that there was no outlet to report UFOs. I mean, what do people do now? Well, wasting the time ringing a priest. They're wasting the time pretty much ringing the police.
You just get
I mean, there was
redirected
a
to a UFO group,
oh
really.
well, there was a time when you'd report it to the police, and the routine, the operation, because I found out about this, was that that has to be documented to the desk sergeant. The desk sergeant fills out an MOD form
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
sends it to the MOD when they were collecting information. But apparently, we've been told they don't do that anymore. So people lost the outlet to report UFOs. Maybe that was the whole point of it. I
Mm.
don't think they stopped ever investigating them,
No.
though, to be honest.
No,
But it
nor do
still
I.
happens.
I think even from a national security point of view,
Yeah,
anything in the sky that's unidentified, you're bound and have
you've
got to
got to.
investigate.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's just a now whether they just want to save themselves on paperwork or even save themselves having this paperwork uncovered down the line. I'm not sure, but yeah, they'll definitely have an interest and especially what's going on across the pond in the United States. Although that is the United States, the rest of the world are watching. And it makes you wonder whether they will do anything in terms of disclosure. Who knows? But
I
if they
don't.
do, it'd be interesting to
Yeah.
see what other countries follow suit, or indeed
Well,
other countries maybe
yeah,
will set the precedent for it.
I think the nearest we've ever come to it was in the House of Lords, where it was brought up about UFOs,
Yeah, yeah,
and that was pertaining to not just other cases, but mostly Rendlesham.
yeah.
And we had Lord Hill Norton, who was the head of the fleet. I think he might have been retired at the time, but he was. And he made a very interesting statement about Rendlesham. He said, look, we rather have people working there, military officers, which are delusional on having hallucinations, and if they're in charge of nuclear weapons, then that's an incredible amount of defense significance.
Mm.
Or some type of strange phenomena did happen next to or in the vicinity of nuclear weapons, which is again of huge defense significance. So he was right either way,
Yeah.
and yet it still got brushed under the carpet, and it's still trying to be determined today, even today, as to what that was. Was it a UFO event? Was
Mm-hmm.
it some type of psyops event?
Yeah.
That debate will always go on. There was aliens seen, no, there wasn't seen, and you'll end up with a head spin. Now, what is interesting is the fact that for me, I didn't investigate Rendlesham, didn't need to. There were so many people doing that. Dot
Mm.
Street, Brenda Butler did an incredible job
Oh
at
yeah,
that
yeah,
place.
yeah.
Other researchers came on later, but I kind of focused on the area of the forest, Rendlesham Forest, and areas of where profound storm took place not long after the incident,
Mm-hmm.
which literally closed down that location.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I looked at these, and I've got video footage and photographs of me being there when I was very young, like, but see, and these trees, like, it got to be a meter in width, and they're just snapped in half,
Mm.
about 8 foot up. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
think to
yeah.
yourself, and yet other trees right next to it are untouched, and you think to yourself, what does that? It is and that's what I was really interested in regarding Rendlesham, because I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if some strange, some type of alteration in weather or climate took place on purpose, just to
Possibly.
just to keep people out of that location for a duration of
Possibly. I
time.
mean, something was definitely happening. I mean, I don't know if you remember the film that came out in 2014. I think it was just called The Rendlesham Forest Incident.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
fictional film. And the director, the guy who made it, he was being interviewed afterwards, and he said when he was on the land, because he filmed on location, he was speaking to an engineer, and he was telling him very seriously that they discovered like fiber optic internet cables that were even advanced to what we have now, and these were
Mm,
laid down in the 80s or
yeah.
even the late 70s. So certainly something was definitely going on there. Now, like you say, there's loads of theories, whether it's the UFO. I do find that the military experiments interesting, and if you remember the Americans were kind of forced to come in after,
Yeah.
like you said, it was read in the House of Lords, and it becomes public domain at that point. So
Well,
they were
yeah.
kind of dragged into that. If that never would have happened, we might not know anything about Rendlesham. Very
Well,
little
no.
anyway.
It is a significant area, though. I think it's important to note,
Yes.
that paranormal phenomena is strife throughout that location. And Rendlesham Forest, lots of people have had strange experiences there long before even the 1980s UFOs
Mm,
of
mm.
Rendlesham. But there were also other UFO incidents that took place long before Rendlesham UFO incident of
There
1980.
was there was one in the 40s actually, right around
Uh,
47, which was
yeah,
witnessed by a few people. So
there
yeah,
is some very
definitely.
notable things and small cryptids which were seen. Actually, there's some towns nearby which are literally named after these small cryptids.
Right, I see.
And on the coastline, there was a military facility there that was allegedly conducting experiments of the same stuff that Tesla was using.
No, that doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, I get what you're saying about the location. Though. I mean, I went down to Rendlesham with a Dutch television company, and we filmed there. And we were there all day. And when we finished, we left them, and they went their way, and we went ours. And it was only after driving like 30 seconds after we'd left them, we suddenly realised everything around us was, and I mean, black. I mean, we couldn't see anything. There was just our car, headlights, everything else was black.
Yeah,
So
it, yeah,
I can see how people can see something and get themselves in a tears. But also, if you are looking to do dodgy experiments or whatever, it's perfect cover because there's no light there. I mean, it shocked us. It must have only lasted about 2 or 3 minutes, and you could see these lights up in the distance, and it was like
yeah.
the town. Thank God we're there because
I
it was
know.
the longest 2 or 3 minutes.
It
I said,
really, it
if we
really
get
is, and it,
down here, we're
yeah,
screwed basically. And
and it's not easiest to get to because there is no direct motorways. You've got to go
no,
through towards
yeah,
Ipswich, and it is a drive and a half. But and there was a military woman, an officer, that came out not long ago, only maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, and she was being interviewed. She left as a military officer just prior to just 1980, but she did report that there were lots of strange things and strange beings seen. This is what she says
mm,
in the area of Rendlesham Forest when she was working there prior to 1980. And I
right,
thought, well,
yeah,
that's really interesting. And she didn't actually know anything about the Rendlesham incident until years after it had already been out. He just coincidentally saw it years later and thought, oh,
mm,
I used to work around there, you know.
yeah.
Oh, it is a bit strange, that location. But you know what? People are going to, especially people in the US, as soon as you say UFOs, UK, that's the thing they're going to go. But if you
Yeah.
really do the research, there's a real lot of stuff that's taken place here over the
Oh
years.
yeah, I mean UFOs are witnessed all over the country, and there are some hotspots, like you say. I mean, like Yorkshire, for example. There's loads of UFOs. There's like the Falkland Triangle in Scotland. There's a triangle which I forget the name of in Wales. So there are little hotspots, but it happens everywhere. And also you see alien abductions happening. People do think that's just an American thing, but it really isn't. There's plenty of
No.
people who at least believe or claim that they have been victims of alien abduction. So knowing that Nigel's works on this and researched this should probably get his thoughts on what alien abductions actually might be, because I'm sure he'll have some interesting theories and
Yeah.
conclusions almost.
Well, yeah, because there's a thin line between contact cases and abduction cases. I mean, there was a period in time in the US where, it was outlined that the alien abduction phenomenon was a very bad experience. You were taken kicking and screaming, that sort of thing,
Mm-hmm.
abducted, against your will, and forced to have medical examinations and hybrids and all sorts of strange things. And of course, they built this around the book Intruders, and of course, that became a TV
Yeah, yeah.
series, a two or three part series, which I did enjoy, but it was very geared in that direction. And when anybody was watching that would never consider there's contact cases. And in fact, I believe there's more contact cases where people are having these experiences with the phenomena as opposed to being sort of forcefully taken against the will in the abduction cases.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, even the ones, even a lot, even some of the ones where people are say, taken from their cars. So you might class that as an abduction, but once they're in that abduction scenario, it's anything but aggressive a lot of the time. Like you say, they're there against the will, but they're kind of being told why they're there and they're being
Yeah, the
entertained
initiation.
and stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
mean,
So,
there was a very good case known as the A70 in
oh
Scotland.
yeah, yeah,
And they were driving. These two guys were driving down this road in the A70. Interesting. It's in a positive magnetic region, the
yes,
A70.
yeah.
Interesting. When we did our research on Project Doorway, we thought, okay, this is interesting.
A lot of the UK is as well.
It's true, and it was the only case apparently alien abduction case listed officially in the UK that the Ministry of Defence are interested in that
Yeah,
time,
they were
which
forced
is
to
also
actually
interesting.
investigate it.
But
Yeah,
they talk about going down this road, seeing this shaped craft hovering above the road about maybe 30 feet
hmm.
and shining this beam of light down onto the road. And they didn't know what to do, but his mate says, leather it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Try and
we'll go
drive
right
through
through
it.
that
Yeah.
beam, you know, because it's a lonely place, the A70 for sure. So he puts his foot down, he ends in that beam, and that's the last thing they remember.
Hmm.
And then obviously afterwards, having hypnosis, they recount missing time,
Yeah,
recount
yeah.
these interactions with these strange beings and some type of medical examination. So your stereotypical type of phenomena take place in an alien abduction case. But I think it's probably, if you say the United Kingdom, which covers Wales and the UK, England, it's not just England,
No,
United
no.
Kingdom, I'd say out of all those three, probably the A70 is the most significant alien abduction case in the
Yeah,
United Kingdom.
I mean, it's certainly one that you say it's got to be up there because of the Ministry of Defence did, kind of take a big interest in it. Another one that stands out to me is the Tony Dodd one, and there's two reasons for this. It's from Derbyshire, and there was two couples. They were having a barbecue. They reported seeing a strange object, like just, in front of them, ahead of them, not too far away. And then it headed towards them. The next thing they realised, they just started cooking as they saw this. By the way, the next thing they realised, the food had all burnt. It was a lot later. And obviously, they were missing time. To cut a long story short, they went to Tony Dodd. Only three of them would be hypnotised. The fourth one refused to be.
Mm.
And they recorded a typical scenario, I suppose, but not so much experimentation. It was more to do with really bizarre things like being told to like not play games but almost solve puzzles, and they describe things like furniture molded to the wall, really intricate details. But the reason I think it's interesting is I spoke to one of the guys that was on that investigation, not Tony Dodd, but he was on there with Dodd, and he was saying that afterwards, all of them experienced like precognition and psychic abilities and telepathy and things like that in various degrees.
Yeah.
Granted, so it's a great example of okay, even if they imagine that, you can't imagine these abilities that have suddenly just started appearing. So I found that absolutely fascinating.
Oh
That
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
There's a lot of stuff, and I think Nigel's got probably a few years on me being a researcher, so
hmm,
he's seen what I've seen going through the 80s and the 90s,
yeah, yeah,
and how it's changed ufology over the years. Because back then it was like, well, you know what, this is a nuts and bolts phenomena. It's what my mentors told me. Not most of them aren't around anymore, fortunately. They're traveling the vast distances of space to
yeah.
come visit us here on Earth. But as time's gone on, we're starting to, well, might not actually be that. And my ideas and theories about what the UFO phenomenon really consists of is kind of shifted somewhat over the years.
Yeah.
And I think anybody will see that change. If you started in ufology, say the 80s and 90s, you'll see that change, how it is today.
Well, I don't even know if it's that. It certainly might be. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. It certainly was like that, like you say back then. That was what
Yeah,
they're coming from outer
hypothesis.
space, blah blah blah, and the nuts and bolts. When I started researching this, that was my theory, partly because that's what you've been told, and partly because it kind of, from an outsider at least, makes the most sense.
Mm,
Spaceships coming from another planet. But
yeah.
like you say, the more you learn about the encounters, just about science and space travel in general. So yeah,
Yeah.
so you've got to either thinking, you've got to be talking, and if they're coming from another planet, they're utilizing wormholes and gateways and
Yeah.
portals. You can't travel through, even if you were to go in hyperdrive,
Yeah.
you're essentially going zillions and zillions and zillions of miles an hour. It's
Doesn't
going to,
make any
you're going
sense.
to crash. You're
yeah,
going to crash into something. Like a pebble can take a whole ship apart. That's
yeah,
what our science tells us.
yeah, yeah.
So they've got to either be utilizing wormholes, portals, or gateways, or they're coming from another dimension. So
Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree with you. Once you start researching this stuff, it's almost impossible to stay stood still because you
Well, yeah,
so much all the time.
you can. I mean, I know Nigel kind of gets into starting around about, the 1890s and the Phantom airships,
Yeah.
but that's our tail end. That's within our life. What about the lives of the people that lived before us,
Oh
and
yeah,
then,
yeah,
and
yeah.
before them, and before them, and back into ancient antiquity? The phenomenon is present then.
Oh
There's
yeah,
so
for
much evidence to
sure. Yeah,
support that.
yeah,
So it's like, well, okay, it's nothing new. They've always been here as far as we know.
hmm.
But over time, they've changed. I mean, we had a spate of, throughout the 1940s, an era of the ghost rockets
Oh
was a
yeah, up in
thing as well,
Sweden. Hmm.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
because we had
And
the
people
Foo
thought
Fighters,
they
but
were
we was
weapons from the Soviet Union, didn't they?
exactly.
Hmm.
And these were sort of cigar shaped. They
Hmm.
had portholes on the side. They'd come down and looked like it was some type of missile coming down to the ground, like some type of rocket.
Yeah.
But then it would pan out and level, and then do a controlled descent into water, and people would see these things going into water, and steam would be coming off and everything. Military people went out there many times to dredge the whole things, and they'd be
Hmm.
gone.
Hmm.
Nobody knew where they disappeared to. The ghost rocket era was a weird thing as well. Again, no explanation for them.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? Because, like you say, I know there's theories out there to say that crafts are like weapons. For example, a lot of the sightings from the 1700s, 1600s, and even before, they'll describe ships in the sky. For example, if you go back even to Roman times, there's a writing by a famous historian, Roman historian, and he was describing an object that looked like a wine vessel. Because that was the only thing that he could like liken it to. So
Yeah.
the only thing I could say going back to the ghost rockets there is the population, is certainly around Europe, were very familiar and probably frightened of the prospect of the V2 rockets,
Yeah.
the wonder weapon that was
See
going to
how it
take out an
fits
entire
in.
country. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's one or two possibilities.
I
Either
mean,
there's
yeah,
such
because
fear
we
that
had
people are mistaking him, or that
absolutely.
is that technology has actually been
Yeah.
utilized
Yeah.
by the Americans or the Brits or whoever. So yeah, there's much more to it than just
Yeah.
nonsense in the
Phantom
sky.
airships around not too far away from the time when they were officially
Yes.
being constructed and built.
Yeah.
If you go back to early days in Paris and other places in France, they have these strange tapestries and paintings of these crafts in the sky, which are spheres, but got
Yes.
bands around them. And you look at
Mm.
that, and you look at some of the modern day photographs of these strange spheres. You think, were they seeing that? Some people
Yeah.
said, well, it's just prior to the balloons, just prior
It's a
to
good
the
point,
balloons
actually, because
that Europe had.
there's
You
woodcuttings,
know?
isn't there, from Germany and Switzerland? I think they're both within 20 years of each other. It's a similar thing. The sphere, there's even documented accounts of this great battle that took place in the sky, the
Oh yes,
planes.
that's right.
You know what I
There's a
mean? And they,
couple actually, isn't there? There's a
yeah, and
couple
they
of
were the
them.
same thing with spheres and crosses. And again, just going back to the Romans, they often described shields in the sky, which you would liken to discs. If you were trying to look for
My shield.
comparisons. So I think it's interesting as much as like you look at old UFO cases and historic UFO cases, and maybe try and dismiss some of them. And if that's what they warrant, then that's fine. But it's also worth looking at some of this stuff that maybe aren't UFO cases, just strange accounts, and thinking, you know what, that could actually be. And I suppose it's a disadvantage because it's all to do with how we perceive things and trying
Yes.
to get into their mindset of why they
Yeah.
writ that.
Yeah.
So, but it's still very interesting. I think there'll be a
Oh
lot more
yeah.
out there than we think.
Absolutely. I think what probably the most important thing there is that it's intercultural. It's
Yeah,
every country on this planet have
yeah,
experienced things and talked about them and documented them, even done drawings and paintings and then there
yeah,
came a
yeah,
time when they thought they've got to be biblical, they've got to be religious. So they started putting them into sort of all the religious connotation
deities
paintings and
and
tapestries and
things.
stuff,
Yeah,
linking it to the crucifixion of Christ, the
yeah.
crucifixion of Christ, and many other things. And then Moses, of course,
Oh,
there's
yeah,
even
yeah.
stories of
How it
Moses and these
shined and
objects.
all,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff.
So the thing is, if as a ufologist, you can just literally spend, I'm just going to focus in the 90s or the 2000s or whatever. However, you can't ignore the fact that it's vast
Oh,
either
yeah, yeah.
side of stuff. So you have to say, okay, yes, this has to be some type of phenomenon, has to
Yes.
be. But then we have to also look in more modern times. Before we had the tech, it was easy. But
Yeah,
now we've got the tech. It's like, well, could it be ours? And this is what
yeah,
a lot of ufology says. It's a misinterpretation of a balloon or Chinese lanterns or whatever. Well, what about before they existed? Before the
yeah,
technology, we still
yeah.
had the phenomena is still there.
Well, it's like you say about the Chinese lanterns. I mean, the Starlink's a good example. I mean, I'll be honest, right? This was about 2 years ago. I went out. Well, I was taking a dog out just to do its business in the garden, and I saw something go zoop. What bloody hell's that? So I'm standing there and still say anything else. Saw another one. I'm getting a bit excited. You know what I mean? Thinking, oh, it's a second, then a third, and I think, hang about. Quick on Google, yeah, there's a Starlink launch tonight, and that's what I was seeing. You know what I mean? Because I kind of got the presence of mind to think, just what could this be? I was almost there thinking, oh, what am I seeing here?
I know.
So I
I
can see how
know.
people can be fooled, you know.
It's easily done, and I wish I could just click my fingers and go back before we had the technology, because
Yeah,
anything up there would have been significant, wouldn't it? Because it couldn't have
yeah.
been a plane, a helicopter, any form of technology or satellite. It was those days, and I'd love to have done that. Gone back in time, and what were the night skies like that back then?
It'd be very interesting, wouldn't it? Because we all imagine them to be ultra quiet and we can see all the stars, and it probably was like that, but we don't know. We
We
don't
don't
know for
know.
certain.
No, we only have to see one thing, and then we can go. At least we can rule out. Well, that's not ours.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
so
yeah,
easy
yeah,
then, isn't it?
yeah.
Because now we've got it's ours, or it could be ours, and we don't know what it is because
Mm.
secret tech. We've got not only technology, but secret tech. So you rule out your tech. It doesn't mean that you can rule out all secret tech. Because sometimes,
No, no. Again, I mean, and you know, about similar with the drones, I suppose. What we've got there is a lot of people are saying we've got some legitimate sightings, and then they've been muddied by all these drones that have suddenly appeared from everywhere. So
yeah.
it's a good way. And that could have been very much the case with the airship sightings.
Oh
Some
yeah,
legitimate sightings of something strange, and then it kind of, for whatever reason, the authorities thought, well, we don't want to create panic, so we'll just kind of manufacture stories, or we'll
exactly.
whatever the case may be. So
Exactly. Well, I know Nigel's got a new book out, which is just released, and it's on Amazon, and it's an interesting because I
yeah,
know he's looking into the alien
yeah.
encounters type stuff, and I know that he's been interviewing people. So from doing interviews myself, I know you won't get away from the fact that when asking questions about have you ever experienced anything else, and people will say paranormal,
Mm,
strange coincidences, all sorts of
absolutely.
things. Because don't we just see that across every time we have a
Oh,
guest on? Don't
yeah,
we ask
yeah.
that question? It's always the same.
It's like you say, though, it's true. I mean, I know I've mentioned this before. So, sometimes when I'll put stuff on social media, anyone's seen this, blah, 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 blah. And I had exactly that. Someone had a big report on a UFO sighting they had when they were
Yep.
younger. And then a couple of hours later, by the way, I'm not sure if you're interested. I have also experienced this. And then, oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
interested. Send them along.
Yep.
So, absolutely. So, again, it makes you wonder whether it's a case of the individual and they've seen one thing, so they're open to others, or wherever this is, I won't name the village, but it's a small village where I live. And it makes you think, well, could there be something just to that with the perimeter of that village? Yeah, it's like quite historic in the sense that the road that runs through it has always been the road that runs through it. So it's been there for 1,000 years, maybe.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
had battles, like medieval battles on there. So I don't know, but yeah, it is surprising that
History.
loads of people experience different things, that you wouldn't expect them to. So we'll have to get
No,
his
you
thoughts on
shouldn't.
that.
It doesn't fall under naturally. You'd say no. It should be if you're experiencing alien abduction type experiences, that it's always going to be, and they wouldn't have had any connect. Well, no, that's the connections are there within the paranormal. They found it in Project Blue Book
Yeah.
years back. In fact, they were telling people stick to the UFOs. We don't want any ghosty stories.
Mm.
Because they wanted to compartmentalize the subjects. Makes it difficult to work things out, then, doesn't it? When you compartmentalize.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the problem as well is in terms of the people who are coming forward with this information is, it's hard enough saying, "Oh, look, I've seen a UFO," or even if it's an alien abduction, obviously that must be even harder to come out and publicly say it. But then if you have experienced things like seen a ghost or you've seen a Bigfoot, then you're thinking they're going to think I'm really am nuts. Not even going to believe the
You've
UFO
lost it.
story.
Yeah,
So that's probably why a lot of people hold back as well.
right.
Maybe that's why Blue Book is maybe because Blue Book was essentially a smokescreen. We all know that,
Of
but
course it
maybe
was.
the investigators who weren't aware of that so much, because a lot of them would have been used as pawns and such.
Well,
Maybe they were
yeah,
kind of thinking if we include that ghost stuff, it makes it all look a farce. So I don't know.
It
I'm not
could be.
sure.
I
But you're
don't think
right.
they really
Sure.
wanted to add the paranormal stuff into it,
Hmm.
or even cryptid stuff, because
Oh,
there
for
were
sure.
cryptids as well. The people had reported in the 1940s UFO incidents
Hmm.
near farmland or rural areas, and it had cryptid type experiences as well. But I think they were ignored pretty much by Blue Book. They just stuck to the UFO facts,
Yeah.
because really it was a military operation, and it was military people doing the research
Yeah.
against the technology that military people knew what was in existence in the public arena. But then they wouldn't have really got into the paranormal critics, because they would have gone, well, it's not really that. That's a bit crazy. No, let's just stick to the UFO stuff. I can get that. I can understand that. But the problem of that is that it born the compartmentalization between the subjects. And now we have to go all the way back now. Now in current times, we're
Hmm.
going, no, we want it. Give us the
Yeah.
cryptids, give us the paranormal, the poltergeist stuff. We need to see the full picture, so we collapse the boxes now. And I do think we are gaining a better understanding of what phenomena represents now, as as to them, because you think, okay, well, yeah, they must have been miles away
Hmm.
of trying to understand what the phenomena truly would have represented. Surely must have done.
Yeah, I mean, again, in a perfect world, if UFO disclosure was to mean what we all wish it meant, it would have been interesting to see whether they would have included that this time, because we've had some people saying, you know,
You think,
quite legitimately saying, look, there's a lot of demonic side to
yeah,
this, and
never
people
enters
shut
it.
them
We'll
down.
never get into a UAP hearing that though, will it?
No, I says what I
It's
mean
the
is it was on the
same
mainstream
process.
news, but yeah, it wasn't coming from the hearings. It
No,
was
it's
just
the same
completely
thing.
ignored.
It'd be interesting to ask Nigel what he thinks about those UAP hearings. I think I will know his answer.
Oh, for sure. I think anyone in the UFO community, I don't think people are. I think people might be hoping for it, but I think you're going to have a long wait on that one. I'm afraid. Steve, look, it's been a it's been a great show. It's been a great chat with you, and I'm looking forward to
Well,
speaking with
I
Nigel
am
as
looking
well.
forward to talking to Nigel. I've known him for a long time, and he's a good researcher. And he's a great guy, and he's a UK ufologist, and there isn't that many of us, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, like you say, there's certainly a UFO. There's UFO activity over here in abundance. So yeah, we do need people to keep investigating that stuff. Steve, as always, my friend, thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much. Enjoyed it, buddy.
Absolutely, absolutely, likewise. And thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you check out our show with Nigel Watson. That'll be going out on November the 8th, Friday at 9 p.m. Until then, make sure you subscribe to our channel, check us out on social media, and check out the Anomaly Project podcast.com for articles, news, and information. Until next time, goodbye and take care.